we just talk? Can we just talk?
Welcome to Bro Book Club. This is our second podcast.
What's up, guys?
We're missing one today. Max couldn't join us, but
What happened to Max? Where's Max at?
I had some last-minute engagement with his reserves for the Air Force, so
That's what they call it these days?
that's what they call it these days. But I'm Rich with SchuBox Athletics. I'm here.
I'm Nick, and I go to SchuBox Athletics, and I still don't really have an active title.
Yeah. This is the shirtless therapist, but most people just call me Derek.
There you go. So quick little synopsis. We're going to be doing the second half of David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. The first half, if you looked over it, was kind of all about setting yourself up to do or start doing what you really want to do. The second half of the book, challenges 6 through 10, really kind of get into excelling when you're into it. So Nick, why don't you start us off, man? Like, what do you think of that cookie jar chapter, the challenge regarding creating a system that reminds you of who you are and who you want to be?
So the cookie jar kind of comes up at an interesting point in the book where Goggins is, he just decides off 3 days' notice to run his first ultra, which is, it's a 100-mile race in 24 hours. I'm not quite sure what that race was specifically that he was running. Was it a 24-hour race?
It was a 24-hour race.
Or was it a ultra?
It was a 24-hour race that he had to do to get qualified for the Badwater 100 that he was going into. But pretty much the guy who does the Badwater told him he had to compete in at least one 100, either running 100 miles in 24 hours or competing and finishing a 100-miler before the Badwater admission process. So he told him about this race, and he pretty much signed up like on 3 days' notice.
Yeah, so the whole concept of the cookie jar comes into play when Goggins is, I don't know how many miles into this thing. He's got to be, it's like 60 or 70 miles in. His shins he's got shin splints that are literally, I think he took an MRI and both his legs were technically broken.
Yeah, mid-race.
Yeah, and he it got so bad he had to pull off to the side with his little pit crew and his wife and his mom, and they had to tape his legs up, and just really the point, like the lowest point of his life, I think, at that point. And he needed sort of a reason to keep on chugging through the 24 hours of running, and the concept of the cookie jar came into his mind, where he had been through all of these things in his life that we talked about earlier in the last episode. And he basically took all the negativity, or he took instances of negativity and turned them into savory moments, if you will, that would fuel him and get his mind focused on that rather than the pain he was putting himself through. And
yeah, that's pretty applicable for a lot of people, though. I mean, like, I always look at the quote, like, motivation is a lie, right? You know, you can get motivated to start something, but once you get something going, those obstacles come pretty quickly. You know, like as he even says, you know, everyone hatches these plans when you're nice and comfortable, like in your living room, like we are right now. You know, and you can make some nice plans, but as soon as things get hard, or you know, you're really tired one day and you don't want to get up and do the thing, or that whatever you're striving to do, you really kind of have to dip into these moments that you have won a challenge or been able to push through a difficult time to go into. And that's kind of this whole concept of this cookie jar, is like looking back at your small wins and kind of leveraging them into bigger wins as you go through.
It's kind of interesting, like, how do you get people to the point where David Goggins is at, where like they're okay taking the hard path, right? They're okay overcoming challenges. They're comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Because it's kind of where David Goggins had to get, and it's like he references like that brief moment where you want to give in, right, on anything what it is. Yeah. And a lot of times it's when like nobody's watching, right? And that's like a true test of character at that time. It's like
for him, it's like when nobody's watching all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no one else is running a 100-mile race. You know, he might be the only one on the course, and you know, he might have just walked out his front door and like, all right, I'm just gonna go do this.
Yeah.
But it's so true with like anything in life. It's like, who are you when nobody's watching, right? And how do you fight that letdown? I know I say that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, you got to fight the letdown. And oddly enough, I actually got that from my high school baseball coach. He'd always say that, fight the letdown, and like it never really like rang home of how like awesome of a saying that is until like I got older. Right?
I mean, especially with baseball, though. I mean, like you're talking about like a game where literally Hall of Famers are failing seven out of 10 times at you know, when you're hitting and when you're on the offense. I mean, you're constantly failing. You constantly have to fight for that next at bat, the next one. That small.
Look at that. I mean, taking baseball is a great analogy too. Is that the failure like 7 out of 10 times, right? Succeeding 3 out of 10 times in your Hall of Famer, and you look at someone like Barry Bonds, and what's the first thing that comes to mind about, you know, how exciting he is to watch, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say steroids.
Well, whatever. Anyways, sure.
I mean, regardless, his skill.
Yeah,
the ball
Regardless,
is
like
amazing.
seeing the guy hit the ball, like seeing, you know, somebody who fails the majority of the time, or you know, Michael Jordan or Kobe or you know, Curry. Any of these people, sports is so applicable to this. It's like, do they fail more than they succeed? But it's so awesome to watch.
Yeah.
So, like in their mind, they're like,
Yeah.
like so someone watching from the outside in, it's like, oh my God, they're winning so much. But then somebody on the inside might be like, oh man, I suck. But people from the outside might be perceiving them as like super successful, right? So
I mean,
it might deter them.
I'm always astonished by their confidence, right? Like I'm always like, I mean, not maybe astonished, but like an admiration of like their confidence or swagger. You like bring up Kobe and Barry, like they never step to the plate like timid, right? Like they're always like pulling on those past wins that they've had. They're always pulling on those past times that they have, you know, succeeded, rather than focusing on all those failures, because they've succeeded enough times that they know like, hey, like someone's got to do it. So I want this last shot. I want this last at bat, and you know what? I'm gonna at least do something.
Like a pressure situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've been through this before. Like they're reaching into the cookie jar to like, hey, I'm not gonna give in. Yeah, put all the focus on me.
Yep.
Give me the responsibility. If someone can't do it, I'll do it.
I mean, I remember Kobe in his first playoff game, or one of his first playoff games, where his game winner, and he completely airballed that. But I mean, no, not that many people remember that play as much as how many times he's been just so clutch in the last play or the last fourth quarter where he's just dominated.
And anybody who remembers that as Kobe's legacy.
I mean, that's not his legacy. That's not his legacy. His legacy is
There's some
his,
people out there,
his,
man.
yeah.
They're like, oh, Kobe, yeah. That guy was a failure from the get-go. You airballed his first, you know.
No, I mean, I'm just astonished. He didn't let that obstacle like define the rest of his career. He went back and he went to the drawing board, and he probably relied on previous times he's hit that shot, and you know that next time he took it, like probably hit it. You know, I don't remember what that time was, but he's hit enough, you know, last minute, you know, winners to that's his legacy now. Like he's been able to pull off all those previous wins to get to that point. And I think it's hard for kind of the layman person who's not in that kind of mentality to pull on those previous wins and leverage it. But I think that's where he's talking about is like anyone can do that. Like, I mean, whatever small wins you have, I mean, do you guys have any like small wins that like you've leveraged out?
Well, small wins, meaning at the time I thought it was a huge failure. But like, so when I first started my job, you know, with monthly sales, it's like, all right, what are your numbers this, what are your numbers that? Well, first, I was super privileged and entitled coming out of college. I had a job, you know, $50,000 a year. You know, back in 2008, I mean, that's a lot of money. You know, not much has changed in terms of like entry level jobs coming out of college education type of thing, you know. But I got laid off 3 months after graduating, and then I went like 6 months or so without a job. And at the time, I didn't quite comprehend it. And I remember my parents like freaking out. Like, what are you talking about? I get like a 4 or 5 month vacation. I got, you know, a little bit of money stashed up and staying with you guys. I'm not tripping. But they're freaked out. Yeah. You know, ended up getting a job. 6 months of that, didn't know what I was doing. and then I ended up where I'm at now. I was like, 10 years ago. And my first 4 months, zero success. And I'm not talking about like, oh, just a little bit of success. Like, yes, legitimately zero. There was nothing. I sold nothing at all. And a little bit of it was, one, the right coach, the right team, the culture, team fit, someone who can do the job, someone who will do the job in terms of like, teach, manage, motivate type of thing. Yeah. So didn't really have someone give me direction, but as soon as, my current boss came down, all of a sudden I had somebody to follow after. And the reason why I bring it up is because when I get people who I hire now when I start, I want them to fail to start. I don't want them to think that this is going to be easy. I tell people in the interview, I try to freak them out. I'm like, get ready to sacrifice 3 years of your life. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, if you really want to be successful, like, your friend time's got to go. Sure, you can hang out with them every once in a while, but you're going to work 12 hours a day. You're going to do this. You're going to run your own business. And you're not going to know what you're doing for 3 years. You got to blindly follow. And the kids, a lot of people succeed early on because they get lucky, right? And then when they have like that bump in the road where they tank for 2 months in a row, they don't have that cookie jar to reach into and be like, boom, I failed before. I know how to get out of this failure, right? Yeah. Whereas someone who fails from the get-go, shit, they got to figure out how to get out of that immediately. And that's such a stronger foundation for anything.
That's what I was going to say is the term cookie jar is such a cute name for such a monumental like mindset, right? I remember when I was first starting out too, I had a mentor that was kind of showing me the ropes of the industry, and I was kind of a little shithead. Didn't really. I was fresh out of high school. Wasn't really listening. Didn't really have a drive to get things done. And a couple years into the job, he came up to me while I was working on something, and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "Man, you're just not cutting it." He goes, if you can't figure out how to push yourself and motivate yourself, I'm gonna have to fucking fire you. And something about that turned the switch, and I from that point on, I made it my mission to be an impressive employee, and to kind of work my way up the ladder. That was probably about 12 years ago, and now I'm kind of, I'm running projects. I'm kind of at the top of the game right now, and that was part of dipping into the cookie jar, just using that as I guess kind of as catapult to, I could have just as easily said, well, screw this, I'm out of here. Right. But I used that situation and that moment, that negative moment that, it's a pretty negative moment when your boss comes up to you and is like, you're a loser. Yeah. But yeah, chose to use that as motivation to keep pressing forward.
So how do you, my question is like, how do you find, do you think that's something that's inherent in people? Do you think it's coachable? Do you think it's learnable?
I think it's learnable.
I think it's definitely learnable.
I don't think everybody has that. I think everybody does have a cookie jar. Yeah. I think everybody has negative moments that they can use. Everybody has negative moments in their life.
No matter how small or big,
everybody. Nobody's just riding rainbows to work every day. You know what I mean? It's everybody's.
But I like the way he says. Like he says, even like when he first started, he didn't really have that many cookies in his jar. Like he basically said, like I had to look back at like small things, like when he was learning how to read. Like he had to look back and say, like, when I could string together a whole sentence and understand every word in the sentence, that was a win for him. Like, we can always go back. I know for me, when I started my business, I think every single time I've made a jump from location to location for the gym, it's always been like, how am I going to cover this new extra expense, like, and dipping into the financials of that. And I've always had to go back to the previous time. It's like, well, when I opened, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I made it work. I made it happen. Like I did the marketing, I grew the people, like I made the relationships to make that happen. And like I always rely, okay, I did that one time, and then the next time yeah, I made that happen again, and I'm doing that again. So every single time I was able to kind of like, for me, look back and say, yeah, I've done the work to do that. So now like making that jump is a little less scary. Even though, it's still a high pressure situation that things get hard, I can look back and say, I've done this before. Like I've been able to get myself out of this situation. I'm sure probably with you and clients when things come up with them, you're come back to situations where like, yeah, I've run into this obstacle before as well, and we've overcame it. And
yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways that gets brought up.
Yeah,
and I think it's interesting because the mentality of that I have at work, one in terms of like really understanding like what customers are looking for, because I think it's all the same. They just want to feel confident that you're going to follow through with what you said.
Yeah.
Right? Or the other issue might be, if you're trying to, if you get frustrated because I got to drive into the city every day, right? And I got to pay for parking, and the company doesn't reimburse it. And one of the guys at the company that I look up to, whenever I see him, I always like ask for like one golden nugget. I don't ask him like, hey, tell me how you do this, this, and this. I'm like, just give me one thing, one little small thing. And like 1 year, it was like, put all your major accounts in binders and be organized. And I was like, okay. And like literally a month later, I had a major account meeting. Not a current client. Went out there, had a binder, and they were like, okay, well, how are you proving this? And I was like, well, I have a binder here with everything you've ever given me. I could go through and show it to you. Like, no, it's fine. Just give us a contract. And I was like, are you serious?
Yeah. When?
What? They're like, yeah, no, we trust you. Looks like you did a good job. And I was like, fantastic. That's awesome. And from that point on, I was like, all right, like he had inadvertently was teaching me how to be organized and overcome some potential objections that might come up.
Yeah. He gave you ways to make a win. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Or another thing he told me, he's like, stop worrying about how much money you can save and start focusing on how much money you can make.
Yeah.
Based on going after certain opportunities or certain perceivable inconveniences, right? So he's saying like, dude, you're gonna have to go through that fire in order to get to that end goal you want. You can't go around it.
No.
Like you have to go through that. So like choose. Either you do it or you don't. But if you don't do it, then know that you're not gonna get there.
I mean, eventually, like it comes down to like where there's friction, there's going to be growth, right? Like there's no growth without that friction. I mean, even in the human body, when I was younger, I had really bad arthritic knees while I was in my growth plates, but I mean, no one would stop that pain because that would mean I was stopping growing. Like,
right.
like you have to go through some kind of growing pains, that's why they call them that, to end up, maturing and becoming who you are. So, I mean, you have to go through those and you have to take those wins and you have to continue to grow out of that. I kind of posted something the other day that kind of really kind of focused on this too. Is that, when you focus on yourself, you grow yourself. And when you focus on shit, you end up growing shit. Like you end up feeding and growing the thing that you put your effort into and keep feeding. So
you reap what you sow, right?
Exactly. And that kind of goes into like his second challenge too, right? Which is like,
well, before you move on,
yeah.
Have you guys ever found this cookie jar concept useful in a physical challenge? Because that's really what
Are you kidding me?
that's really
Yeah.
what he talks about.
Every time I work out, man.
It's not
Yeah.
really
I go into every workout thinking, all right, I'm gonna make this hurt. Like I'm in the mood to make this hurt. Like I want to be in pain, and then I get to that point, and I'm like, it's not so fun anymore. Does it, it's like I get to that point where I'm like, yeah, I can push a little further, and it's gonna result. I'm not, probably not gonna die, but I might be outside like heaving and hoeing.
So I feel like this goes a little deeper than so we talked about the pain cave a little bit last time,
Yeah.
but I feel like this goes deeper and darker. This is
Yeah.
like a deeper, darker cavern than the pain cave, right? Because
Yeah,
I remember
definitely.
years and years ago when I was younger, I was just a really, really low point in my life, and I hadn't really exercised before, and I turned to exercise, and the way that I motivated myself, and this isn't necessarily the healthiest way, and I'm not recommending anybody do this, but was just turning negativity into energy. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure everybody can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
In like what way? Like you just used it like almost like
just taking like the low points that I was in my life and just
almost do something out of spite of it, like
forcing myself into a physical battle with myself in spite of that situation. Just like you said, it's like going to war with yourself, but just to get your mind off all that negativity, but using it to fuel you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what that feels like 100%. Like I remember doing a workout that no one knew what was going on with me, but like I had some, stuff going on in the back of my head, and I was just in the mood to just make it go dark and just like fight that feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just like, I don't really feel good about this. I'm not really happy about this. I am just going to numb that by going into that, like going into that space and making the physical hurt is almost better than the emotional hurt at that point in time. And it almost overshadows that emotional. So
and that's actually, I'm getting chills thinking about it, because that's what Goggins is talking about in that, about the cookie jar specifically. Like, I think this is a deeper, darker thing.
Yeah.
It's using that negativity to fuel. You've already given everything you got.
Yes.
You've given
now
you've given that shot at your job everything you've got. What's next? And that's where I think that cookie jar thing comes in, is using all that negativity to fuel your, not necessarily.
But it's not even just the negativity. It's like for like the way he brings it up and the way I think about it is like, you know what, like if I can get through this physical task, I can get through that emotional task. Or if I can get through that emotional task, I can get through this physical task. Yeah. And they play off of each other, so you're able to take those wins from each other and continue to keep moving to each moment that you're going through.
Jumped on the door, freaking ninja dog. Yeah, dude, I totally get what you're saying on that, because it's like, previously, Goggins probably takes those negative experiences and it drives him down, right? He gets nothing from it. And it's kind of a mentality that, you either have it, you don't have it. But some people say, oh, you didn't lose, you learned. It's like, no, you lost, but you can learn from a loss.
Right.
Right. You can get better from a loss.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you can lose at something and not fail completely at something. Yeah. Like you're not a failure.
You're gonna get another opportunity.
Yeah,
like, do you have the patience to like work toward getting that opportunity until you succeed?
Yeah. And I think you and I were talking about this earlier this week, but that there's a guy named Jocko Willink. Is that his name?
Willix, I think.
Willix.
Yeah, Willix.
And he's an ex-Navy SEAL as well. I think he
somebody brought him up the other day. Like, you need to read Jocko.
Yeah.
It's like the baseball guys that I'm on text with. They're talking.
But that's like his thing. He has this sort of mantra where it's like, oh, you didn't get that job interview? Good. It's more time for you to prepare. And
and then
you're failing you're
he says, look in the mirror and say, you loser, you didn't get that fucking job, idiot.
What is it with these Navy SEALs?
I mean, they just have that hard.
These guys are hanging out together.
Yeah.
I mean, they just have that hard mentality where, like, when things get hard, you need to get harder. Like, you need to sharpen against that edge, and you need to find a way. He even kind of mentions that, like, when he comes up to that obstacle now, he used to turn away and he used to like say, oh, there's a wall. Now he's searching for a window. He's searching for a door. He's searching for a crack that he can chip out during that obstacle, and like saying like, hey, can I get through this obstacle in X way, this way, or do I have to just chip my way all the way through it to get through it? And that's
sometimes you just got to do that.
And he has enough wins under his belt. He can say like, all right, I've done this. I can do that. I can do this next obstacle, and I think that's what he's getting at with this one. And then he also talks about like removing the governor in your mind too. Like,
that was such a cool.
So after
cool concept.
Yeah. So kind of synopsing the book and kind of catching up to speed here. He ends up doing this one day. He ends up getting to mile 70. Completely tanked. but ends up finishing 101 miles by dipping into his cookie jars, thinking about all his past little wins, how hard he studied for this test to get in, how hard he was as a SEALs to get through his SEAL training, 3 times through BUDS. And he kind of dipped in all these to make sure, to get to this point. And he got to 101 miles, and then he had to do this next race, which was in Hawaii, as a 100-mile trail run, probably the hardest 100-mile trail run there is. Mm-hmm. And he ended up going there, and he started talking about this 40% rule that he puts it, that most people are only tapping into about 40% of what their potential is, and they still have this 60% of untapped potential, because the mind kind of governs your body when it gets uncomfortable to want to kind of want to pull back.
Because the rest of that 60% is pain.
Yeah, exactly. Because that 60% hurts to get into.
40% of it's easy, and then the rest of it's painful.
Exactly. So he kind of talks into like removing the governor, and I see this almost every day at the gym, right? Like especially when people come in. Yeah. And I kind of talked about this last one. Like everything's easy when you start, but when that like physical pain comes in, you got to burn through. And like we talk about all the time, kind of going in that pain cave. But it's not even about like just going in that pain cave. It's about pushing your outer limits as a human, is be able to get. Like, I was only this good, but if I'm able to do a little bit more, that means I'm that much better today than I was yesterday. And I'm kind of interested in seeing how your perspective was for this chapter and his challenge regarding trying to tapping into that untapped 60%.
Oh, man. I fight that battle every day, man. I mean, just specifically in the gym, I mean, it's I love the analogy he uses.
Yeah.
I mean, it says it right there, removing the governor. He uses the analogy of cars, right? Cars are capable of a whole lot more than you think they are, because they have a fucking governor on them.
Yeah.
And the governor basically, I don't know the technical use for them.
I mean, it keeps the engine in a safe.
They limit the performance of a vehicle to keep
the
your vehicle
safe.
from
blowing up overheating. Yeah.
And he goes into how the mind has a governor on it, but it's not necessarily a safeguard.
No.
It's a mechanism your mind. I'm sorry. I'm kind of
he goes into kind of like how your mind kind of perceives all your past, what you've been through, like how you are as a person, like the situations that you've gone through, like your normal level of being, and like it kind of says like, oh, you're getting out of your normal level, and every single time you kind of get out of that normal parameter that you've been, it kind of starts hijacking, being like, hey man, you got to back off a little bit. This is a little far out of the norm than what you're used to.
It's one of those analogies that was like, you don't really think about it, and then once he says it, you're like, wow. Now that all makes so much sense. Yeah. And
like, I mean, if you're used to, like he was, sitting on the couch and watching Netflix for 8 hours and going through, then running a 400-meter sprint is going to feel like death. But I mean, fast forward years later, he's running 100-milers. I mean, like that's a fictitious governor that he had to remove to get to that point. I mean, and we all have these limiting governors.
Yeah, it's interesting. The concept of like the governor, because it's so different for every person.
Yeah.
And
and he talks about that too, right? He talks about not everybody has the same floor or ceiling.
Right.
Some people have.
Who knows what it is though? Frankly,
right.
For anybody, unless because it's all mental, right? And it's like
it's all experiential. Like
it is. Yeah. He talks about too.
And he talks about it as a glass ceiling, right? Mm-hmm. You don't really know exactly where that's at, and because they're saying like, oh, he almost becomes like this stoic guy. Yeah.
Right. He's like preparing himself mentally for things that might happen. Right. If his like mother passes away at 2 a.m. and he gets that phone call. Yeah. Right? Mentally being tough. There's the saying that fight's a letdown, or the one thing that is like on my mind mental toughness that they're talking about here, and I can't fucking think about it. So some of you guys feel I'll come back to this one.
I just love the analogy of a car governor and that being applicable to the human body specifically.
I mean, the human body is
and the human mind.
Exactly.
I figured this out. So the saying that I have is that life's going to keep lifing, right?
Yeah.
No matter what happens, life's going to keep lifing.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who exactly told me that. It was probably my boss, so I'll just give him credit. And if it wasn't him, then he'll just keep credit anyways. But like, if you think like bigger picture, like this like stoic nature, right? It's almost like this Zen Buddha mentality where you have like this sense of detachment from things. So, but then again, you don't want to do that because then you stop caring about anything that happens, frankly. But life keep lifing is like one of those things. It's like, all right, like you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, but I think he's going above like life keeps lifing because I mean like things are going to happen, but he's talking about really excelling when things happen, like when things are getting tough, like
how much
when
are
you're
you willing to suffer type of deal.
like not even like willing to suffer. It's like
It's like everything he's talking about is like how much are you willing to suffer? Everything he says just points back to that.
But he's even talking about like once you start suffering, how do you expand the limits? Like, I mean, we're all used to this. Like as like the best analogy like I can come up like with as a gym owner is like a linear progression on weights, right? Like when you start out, like you start on like a 5x5 bench, right? You start week 1 maybe at 95 pounds. You know, week 2 you do your 5x5, maybe you jump to 100 pounds. And then week, 3, you go to 105 pounds because you keep pushing that limit a little bit further. And that's where he's talking about is finding that governor is like, it's okay where you're at, but you just need to find a little bit more and start chunking down where you want to get to into small bits and pieces and starting kind of like using his visualizing and visualizing the successes and pitfalls along your way. It's kind of like looking at that and saying, hey, if I chunk this down, because he was at that trail 100 and, he had his 4th and 5th laps to go and he was almost at a point of exhaustion. And you're just like, look, if I just climb this piece, then I can quit.
I think part of what he was talking about there too, the process of removing the governors. Hey,
exactly.
If you know that your 100% is 1 mile, then run 1 mile plus a foot.
Yeah.
And then the next day, go a mile plus 2 feet.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're going to work your way up to 2 miles.
Exactly. Because, I mean, like you said, life is still going to be there. Life is still going to life. But, I mean, you can fight back. You can say, like, hey, this is my parameter today. But that's not going to be my parameter tomorrow because I'm going to do X today and I'm going to do X plus 1 tomorrow. So, I mean.
He's like one of the most consistent men alive in terms of, like.
Pushing the X factor.
Pushing his own envelope.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of like what he said, where he kind of quotes it out like the governor massages your ego while luring you into a failure, right? Like, so like I know I get into workouts where it's kind of like, oh, you've done 8 rounds of this, like you've done pretty good for yourself. It's okay to like stop now, like it's okay just like to quit, like at 20 minutes of a 22-minute workout, and he's just like, no, like if you got 8 rounds, like do 1 rep more.
Yeah.
Like, and if you do that 1 rep more, take a breather and do 1 rep more and do 1 rep more and do 1 rep more until you finish the 22 minutes. It's like saying like, instead of just letting that governor say like, you're good here. It's like, no, like you're good, but then just do just a little bit more and then a little bit more and then chunk it down to a point where you end up finishing your task and you don't let into that governor. So you end up you start quieting that governor. It's like, yeah, you were going to have me stop at, Murph number 3, but I ended up doing Murph number 4 and Murph number 5, and
oh man,
we'll get into that later. We'll get into that later. We'll get into that later in this as well. But I mean, that's kind of where he's talking about like that consistent progression, and you can apply that to all facets of life. I mean,
yeah, one degree. That was like one of our company.
That 211 to 212 degrees, yeah.
It's like
Doug was so proud about that. He showed him a pot of boiling water to 1,200 people.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, because you turn up 1 degree, your water starts to boil.
Yeah. And it creates steam, and steam can power a locomotive.
Yeah. So there was a train on the video.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
10 football players.
It's a spin on the age-old saying, go the extra mile.
Yeah, exactly.
Go above and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just like 1%, a 1% increase in company revenue
could be all the difference in the world.
It's crazy. It's crazy, like how much money that is, or
so I mean,
whatever,
Well, it's like you said, 1% is the difference between not boiling water and boiling water.
Yeah.
That's
what's 1% of a mile?
Well, I mean,
that's that 1 foot.
Yeah.
Say someone wants to go back to school, right? Like
50 feet,
and they're swayed by the whole. Oh man, I can't take a full load, right? Like take one class. Like if you really want to go to school, take one class. And then take another class, and then take another class, and eventually, those one classes turn into 2 classes. Like you can always push that envelope, and whatever skill set that you're doing. As a business, I get lulled into this too. I was like, oh, I've done X work. I can kind of rest and watch Netflix. It's like, no, like do the work that you've done, plus maybe do like a couple more emails, a couple more launch campaigns, a couple more, content, for social media. I mean,
it's funny. I was talking to somebody about that, and it's like, some people out there play a ton of video games, or some people out there, when they get off work, they shut down and don't think. And I was telling them, I was like, when I'm not, and this is something I can't control, and I'm not angry, I'm not mad about it, I'm not upset about it, I love it. But when I'm not like with my family, or if I'm not at work, or if I'm not like working out, right? Mm-hmm. Like my downtime, my mind is thinking about like, okay, what is it that I either do at my work, or what's another business I want to start, or just ideas are just constantly flowing through my mind about, okay, what can I do to get me to where I want to be, to what I want. And it's not for anybody else. It's just my own goals and my own things, and I just can't help it. My mind doesn't think. I don't want to just come sit down and start playing Fortnite and other shit.
I think that's like, I think you're preaching to the choir with us. I mean, I think like we're all kind of doers in this group, like where we don't like want to just sit down and just kind of like.
I remember a time though where it wasn't like that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, what was the turning point, right?
Yeah.
How do you actually like motivate someone to like look intrinsically and like do that? Right? Because I'm like, people are like, oh, I couldn't do sales. And I'm like, no, I honestly think that like legitimately everybody could do it. I think it's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
I think it's an insecurity issue. I think it's a trust issue. I think it's like a self-doubt thing. And, it's like, how did this guy pull himself out of that shit? Right? Who was his mentor? Like, who kept him consistent? Or did someone just click in his head?
I think something just clicked in his head. Like, he was just tired of, working at Ecolab and finding dead possums and rats hissing at him in the middle of the night. Like he was done. And then once he started this process of just becoming a little bit better and a little bit better, he started just finding like, what's that next thing? What's that next thing? What's that next level? Like, and he kept on his curiosity for finding out if that next level and if he can cut it. Like, right. And I think that's for a lot of pieces. Like, I know for me as well. Like when I go through this, I'm like, I always look at it, can I cut that next level? Can I be that next level? Can I be that person I'm looking at social media? Can I do those same things? And more often than not, it's like, yes, they're no more special than I am. They're just getting out and they're doing the work that goes along with it and putting themselves out there. And that goes for most jobs in the cases that like CEOs and people that are leading organizations tend to be pretty average people, but their mentality is so much different. But exactly. They're okay with failing. They're okay with growing. They're putting their time into what is important to them.
Just know everybody fails.
Yeah,
it's just how you handle that failure.
Everyone fails. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody handles failure differently too.
Yeah, you see somebody at the end goal already. You're like, oh, I want that, right? Mm-hmm. But you're not quite. You're not connecting the dots on like what it takes to get into that.
Yeah.
What it takes to like get to that level. Right, you don't know what kind of failure you have to experience or what you have to suffer in order to get to that level.
Yeah, I'm going to segue that point into 2 points he brings up, because we talked about the last one a little. The next one on the last podcast, which is time management. He basically just kind of goes through about like trimming the fat. Like a lot of people aren't willing to like put down the Netflix and put down the social media. And
God,
we talked about
guy
that.
Trims the fat, doesn't he?
Yeah, he trims the fat way down. And he kind of does this whole Marie Kondo kind of thing, where you're like, if it doesn't bring you joy, if it doesn't bring you betterment in life, get rid of it. That's his whole mentality. Like
maybe find like a medium on that. 'Cause
Yeah.
if like you're so serious all the time, it's like, all right, dude.
Nobody wants to be around you.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it becomes like your mantra. It's like, oh yeah, David.
And that's
Goggins.
a big takeaway. One of the big takeaways I got from this book is like, this is great, and it's great practice, and it's a great mindset, but at the same time, nobody fucking wants to be around you if you're
always pushing. Like
if
need to be better. You can't relax, right? Like
right.
Yeah.
And he goes into that a lot, and how that mindset burned a lot of bridges that he wished he didn't burn.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think that's him. Like that's him personally. That he's striving for that. So like, if you're just striving to make that betterment in your life, like you just need to find that balance, right? Like that time management. Yeah. Like finding no, you don't need to be on social media, Netflix. Yeah, schedule some time with your friends. Like schedule that time to go out and have a beer, or like go out, to your friend's birthday party and go out. Like, but also when it's time to work, like focus on your work, on getting done what you need to get done.
I'm a big proponent of healthy balance in that.
Exactly.
That mindset, because I like to have fun. I like to hang out and play Fortnite with Derek, and
he's like, oh shit.
But I also like to get down and get dirty with with the hard work too.
Yeah.
I'm so weird about that, because I'm like, sometimes I just go off the grid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go off the
How does
grid.
that affect your social life or your relationships with people?
I've set the precedent that, hey, look, like, this isn't anything against you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, my friends will tell you that, like, I disappeared for, like, 3 or 4 years, right? And, like, part of it, dude, I was just so tired. Like, I stopped working out after college. No more baseball. Like, I'd go to work for 10, 12 hours. I didn't even work out. Like, I'd get home, and I would just sit on the couch like, oh, my God, what the hell? I'm so tired. And then I'd wake up at 6 o'clock, and I'd go again. And then I'd leave at 7, at 6, and go at 7, back and forth. And it was hard, and, like, it wasn't anything against, like, either people in my life or my friends, but I finally realized, like, okay, like, I can do this. If I want to go hang out with friends and work out and do this, like, I'll make the time to do it. But I also need them to understand that, like, hey, it's nothing personal, but I'm going to go off the grid for, like, 2 months.
Yeah.
And handle some stuff, take care of it when I pop back out. Now, the key thing for me is that, like, whatever I'm doing and making time for, I'm going to be present. I'm going to be 100% present. Yeah. Like, if I'm spending time with my goddaughter, or if I'm spending time with family, or if I'm spending time with friends, like, I want to be there in that moment. So that's like my balance. It's funny. I read a post online today. It's like, oh, do you guys believe in like balance? What does that mean to you? And it's like such a subjective definition.
Super subjective, yeah.
And
Because
balance is different for every person as well. Like
right. And if somebody says like, oh, I disagree with your definition of balance, I think you're wrong. I'm like, all right, asshole. Like, that's cool. You don't need to be friends with me. Like, I want to be friends with you. You seem like a cool dude. Yeah. But like, if you're not cool with me, like, going off the grid, well then, like, what one, why do you even care, for one?
But I think that also goes along with, like, his time management is, like, whatever your priority is at that time, or whatever you're trying to grow towards at that time. If, like, you need to go off the grid to really focus on what's happening, like, then you need to go off the grid and focus on what's happening. Right. And that's your time priority that you're putting your time into. And then when you're also putting your priority into family, you're putting your time priority into your family.
Man, I used to get really judgy with my when it came to looking at people's time management. Again, putting it against my time management.
Yeah.
And just, I've spent most of my 20s, I spent all my 20s waking up at 3 a.m, going to work every day, and watching all my friends get up at 10 o'clock every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was really easy to look at them all and judge them and say, hey, you guys don't work nearly as hard as I do, or I don't know. Like,
it's hard to bite your tongue sometimes when someone was like, "Oh my god, I woke up, I got to work at 8 and I left at 6:30," and I'm like, "That's cute.
Yeah,
That's a cute timetable."
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
No, you're saying you're judgy about time management, your friends waking up at 10. And...
Yeah, I mean, I guess I handled it differently than you did. I didn't really communicate.
So how do you look at it now?
Oh, I didn't communicate either when I first started. I just disappeared, dude.
Yeah, well, I think you grow into a different. I think most people grow into a different perspective on life as they get older and get into their 30s, later 30s, and it becomes more about work. Life becomes a little bit more about work, and you have to work balance into that.
I think it's about
do you
work,
guys find that?
No, I think Hadley's gonna Hadley's getting her screen time. Honestly, with you, I would say it's not about work, man. I think for you, it's about being a provider. It's about like
So I mean, what I'm getting at is it's when it's about work, it's about work.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. In terms of like separating out like where you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It didn't used to be like that. Even at work, my focus would be all over the place. Like, what are my fucking friends doing right now at 10 o'clock? Eating breakfast with each other and like getting ready for. That's how it used to be. But now it's like when I'm at work, it's all about work. It's all about providing for the family and
putting your focus on
my focus is a whole lot more focused.
You're not trying to multitask so much. You're not so much concerned about what's going on.
My perspective isn't all over the place like it used to be.
Exactly.
I have my I guess my priorities lined up a whole lot better than I used to.
Yeah.
Sounds like you compartmentalize too.
But I think like that's a natural thing to do as you get older. I don't know if do you guys go through that in your 20s? I mean, let's talk about your 20s.
That's so long ago. I mean, no, I mean, like, I won't, like, I was a very, very different person in my 20s than I am today. But I mean, I think now, like, I've learned to manage my time a lot better. I've learned to kind of put my priorities, like it's hard to say, like, I'm still learning how to manage my time better with what I want as well. But I'm doing less of the unimportant stuff, the kind of like the filler, the kind of like the white noise in life, and trying to be a little bit more focused now. And I still got some work to do on that as well. But I'm finding that, step by step, that I'm willing to put my focus more into what I want to do, as opposed to just kind of filling time and finding purpose with my time. And that's something that I'm growing with.
Right.
And
I think for the vast majority of people, this mindset is a tough pill to swallow. Yeah. Especially for younger kids, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude.
Like I almost feel like it's necessary to go through that that sort of recklessness in your 20s, and it propels you to get
focused,
more focused
and organized in your life. I think that's really what it comes down to, is like being organized with your day and like saying like, hey, from this time and this time, I'm gonna focus on my blog, and from this time to this time I'm going to focus on my family, and from this time and this time I'm going to focus on sending out emails, and from this time to this time I'm going to be calling leads. And
dude, it's hard, man. It's so hard to have that ability to like be strict with a schedule like that, because there's
everyone wants
so many distractions.
Do you guys think it's
I think for me, it's come down to the point, like, so many people say like, oh, I can multitask well, and as I'm getting older and as I'm seeing, like, I realize, like, he even says, like, if you're multitasking, you're pretty much doing multiple things at half-ass work, right? Like, you're not able.
No, people at work think I'm a dick if I'm sitting there on the phone and I'm like putting something down.
But I would say, like, how much better could those endeavors have been if that person gave all your focus on that? Like, so I mean, maybe their half-ass might be at a higher level than your half-ass, but I mean, that's still not their full potential.
Well, who's a famous half-ass athlete that you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, can't really put a finger on that. You know?
I mean, there's very rare people that can excel at two things at once, and if you bring sports in mind,
Yeah,
there's a
Deion
couple.
Sanders,
Deion
baby.
Sanders, Bo Jackson.
Which that Deion Sanders Netflix thing is pretty good.
Yeah.
And like honestly, well, granted, I didn't know really about Bo Jackson growing up. I didn't know like how legit he was, and I also didn't realize that like his career ended
So much earlier.
What was it, ACL tear?
No, it's hip.
Oh, his hip?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it ended super early,
Yeah.
right? So he's like the best athlete potentially to have ever lived so far.
Yeah.
And it was like a 4-year, 5-year stint,
Span.
if that.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just massive. He's a massive athlete. Just massive glutes. Just.
Yeah, you have to be obsessed. You
Yeah.
have to be willing to suffer. Like literally, you're.
But
in the real world, you're going against professional athletes, and you don't know shit about shit.
But I would say in general, even Bo Jackson, like when he was playing baseball, like he wasn't focused on football at that time. He was probably
Right.
focused on harnessing that baseball skill. Like
Now, Dion, on the other hand, he was thinking about the
he was thinking about money.
championship.
He was thinking about money. Prime time.
Well, he was still good, but
No.
he was Dion.
Dion.
No, he was Dion on the Braves, and he was prime time on the Falcons.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna kind of segue this into this to this next part because we kind of touched about that in the last one as well. Is a staying on a constant pursuit of betterment, and he kind of talks about this being rare amongst the rare. Right, like
Yeah.
that's kind of his whole thing, and he kind of talks about like even when people get to the pinnacle, like, and we'll take athletes again, like players can get to the NBA, and to get to the NBA, you got to be an amazing talent. But I mean, you look across the NBA, and there's some people that are in the NBA, and then there's some people that are in the NBA.
Right.
Like there's the Kobe's and LeBrons, and then there's the Lonzos.
Yeah.
He
talks
part of
about
a
how-
6-way trade for one player.
Yeah.
He talks about how these guys go through this ridiculous process of getting into the SEALs, going
Yeah.
through buds, going through Hell Week, and then making it through all that stuff with all that intensive training, all that intensive book work, and then make it into the SEALs, and then just kind of coasting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's.
I mean,
for me, it's so easy.
That's what he does, or he says no to that.
A lot of guys do
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
A lot of people
once
do
they
that.
get through and they got some blanket.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
when you make it to the top and you
Right.
make it into that uncommon,
So
you're
it's like
breathing that
contracts.
uncommon
You drive down the
air.
street, there's like 10 guys that they finally got that job and they're just sitting there.
Yeah, well, I mean, once you
Coast.
become the boss, I mean,
Right.
Or-
We got a bunch of nicks on the side of the road pointing fingers at me.
it's very easy to
or
fall
the people
into.
that worked for a tenured position, and then they get the tenured position, and then they kind of fade
Yeah.
off and do the bare minimum, or and still hold that very prestigious title and still
Right.
doing the work, but maybe they're not going above and beyond.
It's
to be-
easier to start delegating tasks out to people instead of doing it yourself, and
yeah,
um,
or working on what that next thing is. Right? It becomes, and if you want to, end up just continuing like pushing the envelope of yourself, you always have to look for that next piece that you can work on. And I again, it kind of comes to my mind for this whole thing is like you need to hold this this duality in your mind. Like you need to accept who you are, right? Like, and you need to be okay with who you are, and that whole self-love piece of loving yourself. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you should stop trying to grow and stop trying to become even better, or try to better some part of your life that you may be falling short on. Like, and you need to find out what that is. If you're great at business and great at your family, but you're neglecting your health, I mean, that's an area that maybe you should be working on, because if you want to do even better in business and better with your family and be around, you need to make sure that you're hitting that point in your life as well. And that goes for if you're really fit and have a really good relationship with your family, but you're not doing anything, to help support them. Like, well, you need to do something in that aspect to make that happen. And it kind of comes to this whole, these separate cups of life you need to continue to fill, like, and bring all of them up to continually raise the level of who you are.
yeah. Fucking Goggins, man. I mean, I struggle with it all the time. Like I have very little oversight at work, and very few check-ins. I mentioned to you the other day, the last time somebody checked in with me in my office was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's just me out there directing a lot of guys with no oversight, and it's easy to when you're. It's easy to fall into the coast mindset. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, I feel like you've already told. Within that same conversation, like you had that, like, yeah, I've turned in 3 projects in a row that were, under budget, and did a lot of work and are ahead of schedule. So I mean, like, you even, like, you're saying that it's easy to coast, but I mean, you've done a pretty good job with not coasting and making sure things like continually try to improve and try to better the stance where you're at. And
but without that oversight and without that person that's keeping you accountable, it's
very
super easy
to
to slip into mediocrity.
Yeah, I mean, but
you
you
guys find that? I mean, Derek, salesman,
man.
USA.
Yeah, right.
You ever have hard times where, or are you just perfect all the time?
No, dude. Yeah, far from
Goddamn.
that. Absolutely. If anybody from my company was listening to this, they'd be laughing. They're like, Derek, he's the biggest slap dick we have. No. Yeah, dude. It's so easy, especially in our job, to like coast. But the reality is that the results are results, and at the end of the month, it's pretty easy to problem solve what the failures and where they're being caused. But we don't micromanage activity.
Right.
I'll do it to show my reps and to show people, like, okay, here's what you need to do minute by minute.
Right.
I'll break it down. Like, how much money do you want to make?
But how do you get them to really like pursue that growth on their own, like and pursue
or how do you pursue growth on your own? If you're not being managed or you're not being kind of directed and told.
How do you find that next level, like where
it's really doing goal setting, like really keeping score on yourself, and being consistent in terms of like goal setting, and then being accountable about what your goals are, and then asking yourself, how do you get to it, and then understanding what it took for you to accomplish what you did. And if you're trying to go 10% more, okay, then you gotta do a problem solve loop.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, so here's the input, here's the output, here's the result. Let's review. Okay, so we didn't get what we want. Let's change the input a little bit. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Right. So we do that over and over and over again. Especially with somebody who's just starting out, like we're consistently reviewing effort and results. Effort and results. So input, what did we do? What did we get out of it? What was the results? Okay, did that work? No, let's go again another 30 days. Right? So as long as somebody is like telling the truth about the effort that they're putting in, and this is so true with anything in life, like this, whether it be my job or the gym, whatever, you lift the weight, you're going to get stronger. Yeah. If you do it with good form, you're going to get stronger. Yeah. If you go out and you cold call, you're going to find deals. If you want to, make a certain amount of money and you make a certain amount of money per deal, well, you can easily back into whatever it is. If, you're building something and, you've done it before, all of our jobs are like very monkey see, monkey do. Yeah. We're not out there like writing code and creating crazy new software that is like disrupting industries.
As far as you know.
Okay. Yeah. But do you get what I'm saying though?
Yeah.
Like we're very proficient at, processes.
So I mean, so you kind of bring that up, like maybe you're not like path blazing like a trail, like in trail finding, but like how do you torch the complacency that kind of grows within that? Like how do you tell people like, yes, like I know we're not doing anything revolutionary, but how do you fire them up to still stay in pursuit of getting better even within that stance? Like,
well, for me, I give them something they've never had before. Like I put a little money in their pocket and they're like, oh my god, like, wow,
incentive.
I can take my girlfriend out. We can go and I don't have to worry about this anymore. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Or I can get a different car. Or you give them the means to potentially change their situation, change their circumstance. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it is, at least in my job, is money motivated. Like the first time that I got a commission check where I was 100% commission, which I have been for the last 8.5 years, 100%. Like there's like, they're like, holy shit, like, oh my God, I actually did that.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, if I just keep working and stay consistent and work, then like I'll actually do it. And then I did it for 12 months and I was like, oh wow, so it is right. It does work if you just do the work. Like the people that I had blind faith in,
mm-hmm.
right? So, this could segue to a bunch of different like topics to go over, like 5 dysfunctions of a team, guerrilla warfare. I mean, there's a whole bunch of like books out there that talk about mentality of like how to work back from like inattention to detail and lack of results.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is that at the core foundation of it, a few people came into my life that just happened to say the right things, and I trusted them, and that was it. Trust. I started with trust, and I had people who like showed interest in me.
So I mean, like, I guess personally, like, even kind of deepening in there, like, that's how you got there. But how do you just not like stay on coast now? Like, how do you push yourself to consistently try to get to that next level, get to that president, stay on top, like, not just kind of saying like, oh, everything's good enough, like.
I think it's a maturity thing, and then also like taking on different roles, like what matters to you in life, type of thing, right? Because it's like the give back that you have with certain people if you're going to be a mentorship.
Well, okay, I'm going to even stop you there because I'm going to go back to what you said where you were thinking about like different businesses, like and different things kind of coming up. Like what is kind of like fed that constant wanting to like do the next thing, right? Like I know for me, like I sit back and I'm thinking like, yes, what I'm doing is good, like what I'm doing is planned, but like what is the next step? Like what is, like I'm always looking for honestly, what is that next piece? Like,
I think so. Here's my thing: is like whatever your initiative on it is, or like whatever's driving you to do it, by all means, whatever. I think like the first part about it was like, how can I write off like part of my mortgage on my taxes? Okay, I need to start a business that like doesn't take a whole lot of time, that I can make some money on, that I could write off like, a fourth of the house as a business and like break even and like have it be legit, So I'm like, all right, what could I actually run out of my, out of my house to save some money? And then what, I don't know. So just shit that like rich people already do, like in terms of like, all right, well, what's available and what's the system out there, and educate yourself in terms of like, either taxes or just certain angles or certain techniques, certain avenues. Like, what are other people doing that are smarter than me, and like, what's the end result there?
Yeah.
Like, and it doesn't have to be. Yeah, I don't necessarily know. Like, but,
well, yeah.
Like just follow after people that.
Well, I mean, what goes through my mind isn't so much. I mean, my job, the whole process of staying in constant pursuit, it takes time, and you need the experience in order to reach the next level. And I'm still young in my career, actually, and I'm probably one of the younger guys at my level that you'd ever meet in my industry. So I understand that time is a big factor in what it, in making the next level. But I mean, aside from work and aside from those kind of aspirations, I think another way to look at this would be with relationships.
Yeah.
Staying in constant pursuit of who matters in your life too, and that's always a tough one. Hanging on to people that matter and trying to find and draw boundaries of where keeping those people in your life and how to pursue those people and how to maintain those relationships.
Yeah, I mean
that's a interesting kind of way to view it too.
No, I mean that's kind of like where I was talking about those separate cups, right? Like like relationships is one, work is one, you know, health is one. Like there's all these different cups that like you're in always constant battles.
Yeah, because people are a motherfucker, man.
Yeah. So I mean,
fuck people, man. People suck.
Yeah, but you need them.
Yeah.
I need my people. And
I got Hadley.
yeah, she's
dog.
good. She's not a person.
No, she's a person, right? She has an Instagram. She has a personality. She will talk to you.
Oh, so how do you stay in constant pursuit of her?
Of Hadley?
And
take her for walks.
I don't.
take
I lock her in
take
the
those
house.
relationships to the next level.
I lock her in the house.
Lock her.
She can't leave.
She loves you for it.
Yeah, right, exactly. She does.
Well, I know for me, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, between the Bro Book Club. Like, I'm always kind of like looking for that constant pursuit of what's that next challenge. What am I going to do to challenge myself? And like, I've kind of approached these guys about doing something more with the Memorial Day Murph workout. And I'll just kind of put it out there right now.
Is it that time?
And you know, I have some people that are afflicted, you know, that are veterans with PTSD and that are family, and I wanted to do something kind of more and kind of get to that next level. And we just kind of heard about, you know, David Goggins and his 24-hour challenges, so we wanted to do I wanted to do a 24-hour challenge. So I asked these guys if they wanted to join me with
a wind vest?
Reluctantly.
Reluctantly
Round
said.
to Cindy, or are we going straight through?
No, Cindy.
Round to Cindy?
Round to Cindy. So
I haven't worked out my participation level in this thing yet.
So
doing it. I'm doing
I decided that at least I
I'll
wanted to
do it with you.
do 24 hours
if I'm here.
of a marathon where we're doing a Murph for 24 hours. So a mile run, you know, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, broken down in 5, 10, 15 for 20 rounds, and then a mile run, come back in, knock down that, and just keep that going for about 24 hours.
So
do you run a mile, do it, run a mile, then
Yes.
break, and then
So
run
when
a
you-
mile, do it, run a mile?
Yeah.
when you brought this up initially, I was like, dude, you're gonna fucking die. But
Then you watch the video.
we saw someone do it. And
Yeah.
somebody's
Well,
done this before.
did you
and
watch-
he was a
did-
60-year-old.
Yeah, but did you watch? Dude, not to take any. So the guy did what, like 7 rounds?
11.
Oh, 11. Okay, but
That's
so-
11 rounds.
So I wasn't quite comprehending. I was like, "Fuck, the guy just keep going or what?"
Yeah.
But no, like he took breaks and he got
Well,
rubbed
yeah,
out.
that's,
Yeah.
How, that's how you do
So
it.
if anybody wants to come rub us out on Memorial Day, by all means.
Yeah. Hey, you guys. Wait, sorry, this is a quick tangent. Have you guys watched that Netflix show Abducted in Plain Sight?
No.
I think I've been seeing it. I have seen it on. It taunts me, and I'm like, oh, okay. Do I watch this? Do I not watch this?
So, long story short,
Should I watch it after the Ted Bundy tapes?
it's different. It's a different level of just messed up.
Oh, that's
Human
right. There's
behavior.
like serious, like you said.
But there's,
Fuck
I mean, this guy basically he infiltrates this family. He ends up. It's super messed up, but like it happened. He ends up molesting this family's daughter. Then he gets into a relationship with this guy's wife, and then he drives the dad of this family up to a hilltop. And they're family friends. They live next door, and he takes him up to the mountains. He's like, hey man, like just having a really tough time with my family right now. Really tough time with my wife. You know, me and my wife are having a really tough relationship. Just really stressed out. Got a lot of tension. You mind doing me a favor and
Shut the front door. Wait, what?
no shit.
He asked the husband of
Yeah.
the woman that he was like.
Yeah, and he's like, hey man, it's
Fuck
just kid stuff, man. It's just kid stuff. And the guy's like,
Wait, what? The guy rubbed him out? Oh my god. Oh, it's like that Andy guy in the fire film.
yeah,
festival.
no man, it's
I
such
will
it's such a
suck
messed
dick
up
to get water onto the island.
such a messed up story, but that one thing, man, just made me laugh.
Like what? He actually rubbed him out.
He did. In the 70s, though, I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't rub people out in the 70s. You go away.
Dude, people. Yeah.
I feel.
We
I
don't
feel
need to
like
get into like
No, we don't have to
stories
talk
about
about
like funny ass things.
I just
like that.
I watched it the other day, and one of you said something that reminded me of
Yeah, I
releasing
said
ketchup.
somebody wants to come rub us out during
Yes,
Murph.
that's what it was.
Yeah, the Murphathon.
Yeah.
But I wasn't talking about that kind of,
I mean, were you?
OTPHs are fine, I guess.
So we're getting pretty far off point here. So
We're just trying to keep this the motivating podcast.
so yeah,
We got to be funny sometimes.
Motivating, unmotivating, least watched podcast on the internet.
Don't waste your time on that show.
They're not going to see this. They're not going to hear this either. This is too far into it. Nobody listens this long.
We are getting close to where we were at last time.
Yeah. What else do you got on the agenda?
staying in constant pursuit and failing your way forward.
Failing your way forward.
Yeah.
Forward, fuck, that's a long
Yeah, failing our way forward, I think, is a good topic right about now because we probably failed today, but we're gonna keep moving forward.
You know what, man?
This was not a failure.
Okay, no,
The fact that
this
we-
was probably a learning experience for
Learning
us.
experience.
Yes.
Did- How you guys liking the podcast so far?
Yeah.
What's been the feedback?
It's been
Rich?
good, pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Has there been,
They
has there
did-
been
they-
outstanding positives, outstanding negatives?
They
What's-
kind of said that we went on a lot of different tangents.
Is that a bad thing, though? It is.
I mean, I kind of told
Who's
them,
they?
that tangents were kind of expected with
Who
what's
do I need to
going
go
on.
talk to after this?
I got a list.
I'll give you a list.
Yeah.
We're coming after you.
Who do I need to drive up a hill and?
The husband.
So I'm having a hard time with my podcast. Can you
It's just kid stuff.
just get stuff?
Take the foam off this
Oh
microphone.
man, it's gonna land,
So-
land us on some watch list.
Yeah, right. All of a sudden, all three of us have red dots.
So overall, I mean, what do you guys think of this book?
Well,
How
failing
did-
forward.
No, the whole book.
The book as a whole.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved the story. I loved the mindset. I found myself applying principles, and challenges, right out of the get go. Over the past, and it's taken me damn near 2 weeks to read the whole thing, but I found myself applying a lot of his.
I like these books, and I was talking to Rich about it. The one thing I don't like about it is like sometimes I feel like they're impractical.
Yeah.
I do feel like, maybe not his book specifically, but like, because David Goggins' personality, like, I'm not the type of guy that's like gonna sit in the mirror and be like, "You're fucking fat, fuck," like, dude, I'm like, okay, like maybe it's a little too serious for me, but I'll scale it down, right? I'll take a lot of the lessons with a grain of salt.
I think he's got some nuggets in there.
I think his story is like pretty inspiring. Like, holy shit,
Yeah.
this guy's a freaking badass, right? And like the stories that he has are like crazy, crazy. It's amazing that like he's able to pull himself out and then lead a life with these pillars here, these like 6 pillars of success that he has. And whether somebody adopts that or they adopt their own, I think it's just, who cares what form or function you do it in, right?
You're making a positive change.
Yeah.
If you're-
So I like the book. I like the stories, and I like the concept of the whole thing. I think it was a good, good to see. Like, holy shit! All right, this guy's fat. I might be fat too. Or this guy sucked. I probably suck too. If it helps even just one person kind of have that conversation with themselves.
Yeah.
When they've never had it before.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm with Nick. I mean, I love this book. Like, it was the story was engaging. Like, the things that he went through was pretty phenomenal. The things that he's been able to achieve over his life has been pretty exceptional. He's an exceptional cat, though. Like, his mindset goes to an extreme, but like Derek says, there are a lot of nuggets in here that kind of took away. Like, I found myself kind of doing some things right off the bat. I mean, not necessarily the accountability mirror saying like, dude, you're a lame-o for not being able to get in front of the camera. But I was like, but at the end of the day, I would tell myself, hey, what did I post on my story? Was I the face of my franchise? Was I the face of my business? No, I wasn't. Well, then I need to do something about that.
I've noticed that, man. I've noticed that.
Yeah.
Your Instagram has gotten a lot more motivating recently.
Yeah, trying to, trying to keep moving forward with that. Trying to stay on a constant pursuit of, bettering myself and trying to do that next level. Trying to continually go through that. So I mean, overall, like I would give this book like a 4.9 out of 5. Like,
what about out of 10? Because that's what I was going to ask next.
I'd give it a
4.9 out of 5 to like a 6.
9.8 out of 10. Like I think
Set the bar high for all future books.
Yeah.
I mean, I think his story was amazing though. Like the things that he went through, like he was engaging. I listened to it on Audible, which like he kind of goes into. Shout out to Audible, by the way. He kind of goes into some of like the reasons why he put the stories in there, which was a little bit more in depth than what the book goes into. So it was a good listen. It was a quick listen. It kept you engaged.
Yeah.
Throughout it, like
Was it him?
it was him and his writer sitting down doing basically a podcast and talking.
That's kind of
like
dope,
this,
actually, because then you get his like passion and inflection in the voice.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, dude, let me tell you about this fucking story. Rather than like you have to kind of like imagine like what does he sound like.
Yeah. I got my dad to kind of read through the book too, and the first thing that he said was, "I don't find all the cussing in it necessary, but it's a good message. It's a good positive message."
But I mean,
just a warning for anybody that's sensitive to profanity.
He does swear a lot in
There's
it,
a
but I
lot
mean,
of fucking cuss words in there.
but if you can get past that and see the message for what the message is and not just the words, like I mean, he was a SEAL. He was he grew up in a hard life. I mean, everything wasn't really.
It adds to the tone of the book.
Yeah, it definitely adds to his mentality. And
Actually, now that I think about it, it's been a couple weeks since I actually read through it. No, the initial parts of the stories were actually pretty intriguing. Like him and his family.
Yeah,
I loved.
That's actually really interesting.
I loved him. I loved hearing his childhood story. I loved hearing about his ultra experience. His ultra experiences were the most interesting parts to me.
I found the bud stuff like that.
The bud stuff was interesting.
The bud stuff and the pull up stuff at the end. So I'll go quickly into it. Like he also had a pull up challenge, the 24-hour pull up challenge as well. Kind of like what kind of sparked my 24-hour Marathon that I wanted to do as well.
Martha.
Yeah, but he also failed it 2 times and still went after it. So like it kind of gave me the inspiration and just the reminder that it's okay to fail, like while you're pursuing growth.
Yeah.
Like have that leniency on yourself. Like I said, accept who you are right now, but don't stop ever the continual pursuit of trying to better yourself, like and becoming a better version of yourself. Everything's always changing. If you're staying the same, you are falling behind more than likely.
It's true.
Anything else to add?
I'll give this book a 10 out of 10 because this is the first book I've read in 13 years.
There you go. Derek, you got a 10
constant growth
out of 10. What is it?
I'm not giving it 10 out of 10.
No way, huh?
No, I think you gotta leave some room for future.
Yeah, I'm only giving it a 10 out of 10 because I don't read books very often.
Yeah, I don't read books very often either. I'd probably say
it's a good read.
Like and this is no indication on the quality of the book. This is just me and the books I like. Probably like a 7.8. Like an 8.
Ooh.
Not for the content. Not for the content. Or
for the cussing. For the swearing.
Yeah, too much swearing.
Too much swearing.
I really don't like when he says the F word so many fucking times. So, but on that note, that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Anyways, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel or leave us 5 stars on iTunes when we get that going. And go catch this book.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel right here.
Or down there. Or over there. I don't know. Wherever it's at.
Click on the link.
Go get the book. It's David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. It was actually a pretty good read and get some things out of it. And on your way, find your strength, find your strong, and own your own story. Out.
See ya.
What are we reading next?
Oh, yeah. We are going to be reading The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck next. So if you want to join in, we're going to be doing some things. So go ahead and we're going to cover the whole book the next time we go through this. So The Subtle Art of...
It's a shorter book.
It's a shorter book. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is the next one. Yeah. There you go.